Senior consultant ophthalmologist at Koc, subspecialty anterior segment and refractive. He's the chief of and CEO of Koc since January 2001, and he had many awards. And he's the lead of the Foundation of Prevention of Blindness Union, and he's the current chief of King Khalid Eye Specialist Hospital. You may start, Dr. Abdelaziz.
Thank you very much. First of all, it's a great pleasure and honor to be among friends and colleagues and family members. It's been a long time since I've been in Kuwait, maybe 13, 14 years ago, and it's a pleasure to be back home. I was asked by Dr. Faisal to talk about leadership. I'm not sure that I can add much to your experiences, but I'll try my best at least to give you a flavor of my experience. This talk is probably not directed to old geezers like us, but to the younger generation who may benefit a little bit from our experiences and the things that we went through throughout our career and our personal life. So please feel free to stop me at any time whenever you have a question or you don't agree with something I say. So let's start with what is leadership. We have to differentiate between leaders who are there because they hold a position of power, an administrative position, and leaders who inspire other people around them and team members and family to do something better. And there is a huge difference. When you become a leader because of your progression within your career, you do that because you have a certificate, because you have experience, because you have relatives at higher places. God knows what's the reason, but you go up on the ladder of improvement of your career based on so many other skills. It does not have to be sometimes, unfortunately, leadership. You can have individuals within your team members who are not in an important or decision-making position within your team, but they are leaders within that team because of the qualities in their personality and the way they do their work. The big question that is always asked, are leaders born or are they made? How many of you, show of hands, think that leaders are born to be leaders? Or they have at least the qualities to be leaders? Raise your hand if you believe they are born to be leaders. Okay, that's only 2. How many of you think that leaders become leaders because they get trained to be leaders? Okay, you're voting for both. I agree it's a mix, and I agree that leaders are not born to be perfect leaders, and you need to train them to be excellent leaders. But I personally think that the personality itself has a big role to play in people being leaders. We have seen people who are not leaders. They go through all the training, all the courses, all the mentoring, and still they never become leaders because they don't have it in them within their personality. And sometimes you see people who had no training whatsoever, and they still can lead in crisis management, in departments, in areas that they work in. Anyway, this is a huge debate. I don't think that we will solve it here. The main issue, in my point, the main point in my opinion, for someone to be a great leader is to have passion. You cannot be a leader if you don't have passion. If you don't believe in what you're doing, you're just doing a job. It's not a mission. And for us, ophthalmologists and doctors in general, we cannot do what we do if we treat what we're doing as a job. Unfortunately, the direction nowadays internationally is turning medicine into a job, into a profession. When we went into medicine, it was a mission. It was something that we believed in. We went into medicine because we wanted to cure people, because we wanted to have a positive impact on people's life. Now, lots of people go into medicine because they want to make money, because they want to be respected, because they want to hold higher positions. And this is a major issue. If you don't have passion in whatever you do, even the smallest thing, you can never excel or exceed in it. The second most important point, I think, for any leader is to have a team. Any leader who thinks that he can make it by himself or he made it on his own, he's delusional. You cannot do anything in your life. You cannot succeed in anything as a leader if you don't have a team. First of all, that respects you, believes in you and give you all their talent and their capabilities. So never think as a leader that it was only you. It was never only you. It was always the team who was inspired, hopefully, by you and your personality. You have to make tough decisions in your life, and especially as a leader. We credit all of the success, almost all of the success of Apple to Steve Jobs. But you will be surprised to know that Steve Jobs was totally against the iPhone, extremely against the iPhone and against the iPad. And he used to tell his team, we are in the business of making music equipment or technology to make listening to music easier, but not iPods and not iPhones. We're not into the business of making phones. But because he had the strength in him and the belief that he is strong enough to accept a challenge from his team, he accepted that they kept on challenging him several times, trying to convince him that going and making a phone by Apple would be a great thing. And that's the way of the future. And eventually they met, because they worked for a year and a half behind his back on the iPhone concept until they presented him the concept. And then he did not hesitate to say, okay, I was mistaken. I'll take up your idea and we'll go with it. And now it's the most successful product of Apple. So you have to have confidence as a leader that when you're challenged with your team members, that this is not a challenge to you. They're just giving you their opinion. And you have actually to encourage them to give you their opinion, because that's the only way you can succeed. You don't know everything. And there are people who are around you who are probably more talented than you, or maybe have a way of looking at things that is probably from an angle that you did not see. And these will make you even more stronger and more successful, but they don't challenge your position unless you really don't trust yourself and know you're weak inside. And that's when you see them as a threat. Focus on yourself. When you wake up in the morning, you're challenging yourself, you're not challenging people. When you're challenged and the race is between you and yourself, you always try to improve. When the challenge and the race is between you and others, you end up doing non-ethical actions in trying to suppress them and stop them so you can go ahead. And that's not the way you should be. As a leader, focus on how you improve your qualities, your personality, your job, how you perform it, pick up new ideas, new approaches, and let the competition challenge you. But never try to crash the competition to think that this is the way that will make you even better. And this is something that I always quote. And I think it's so true. Perception, in my opinion, is reality. It has nothing to do with reality. If I have a perception that this bottle of water is poisoned, no matter what you say, I will never be convinced. If you talk to me with the understanding and the concept that this is water, and then I'm really dumb for thinking that it is poison, there is no reason. And you keep on trying to talk to me and convince me it's water based on your own belief, I will never be convinced. The only time when you will be able to convince me that this is not poisoned is when you start looking at my perception and addressing my perception, not the reality. And this will help you when you're talking and negotiating with people. You have to know what their perception is. If their perception is that you're taking advantage of them, then you have to tackle that perception. You have to make them believe that you're not taking advantage of them. It doesn't matter if you think or you believe you're not. It's what he believes, his perception, that makes a difference in any discussion. And then the thing that we always get reminded of, but seldom apply in our life. We have Professor Dua here. Welcome to the talk. It's a great honor. And to me, he is one of the biggest examples of modesty and humbleness in spite of being one of the top-ranking ophthalmologists in the profession. And the more he grows, the more humble and the more sweet and the more nice he is to his junior peers. And this is what happens to people who have confidence in themselves. The more your ego is, the less knowledge you have. And the more knowledge you have, the less your ego is. So who's first? This is a concept now that is being brought up. It comes not from ophthalmology or medicine, but from the market. where now there is a trend to say that we focus on the staff and then the customers come second, because they believe if you treat your staff well, they will be happy, and then your customers will be happy. Now, this is, in my opinion, a dangerous concept in medicine. Medicine is a profession where we went in to give, not to receive. We went in to sacrifice. This is how we were. This is my generation, and all the seniors' generation was brought up that medicine is a profession where you sacrifice almost everything for the benefit of patients. If we start saying no, you have to be happy, you have to be pampered, you work from 7 to 5 or 7 to 4, and that's it. Anything extra, either you get paid or you don't do it, then that's not medicine anymore. It becomes a profession. It's not a mission. Some people might, I'm not saying don't cater for your staff, neglect your staff, they are very important. But I think the priority, our priority has always been our patients, even if this means that it will harm us or our families. This is how we were brought up. Now, if we change that concept, I'm not sure if medicine will stay what it is and not turn into just a job that everyone is performing. And then you'll have a surgeon mid-surgery say, okay, either you pay me extra for my extra time or I'm closing up and I'm finishing the surgery. I don't care what happens to the patient because I'm tired. I've been working 18 hours or 16 hours or 14 hours. Or I will never do any long-term surgeries because, or you have a patient who comes to the emergency room and say, oh, I'm sorry, my time is up. Find someone else to do it. So this is an important concept that is now taking over all the principles in a workplace, but I think we have to reflect so much on it when it comes into medicine. And then another concept that is being brought up, and it's very popular in medicine, is rewarding the wrong. And this is a concept that I'm sure you've seen it, which is the just culture, which is very good in principle. It says that I try to convince or encourage my staff to admit to their mistakes, and in return, I will not punish them, because the belief is, or the principle, it's not his mistake, it's the system's mistake. Because the system did not provide a way of preventing him from making this mistake. Now, if we want to develop a perfect system where no one can make a mistake and where the simplest mistake will be immediately picked up, we all know this is a mission impossible. There is no perfect system in the world. You always have to improve, and you will end up at the end of the day with a system that is so complicated that will defeat the purpose of having the system itself, because you have to go through 16 steps to get to your goal to make sure that you did not make a mistake anywhere. And in between, there is no responsibility on the individual itself. So if we overdo, in my opinion, the just culture, we will end up with people who are totally indifferent because it's the system. Yes, I did mix up the pills, but the system did not provide for a way to have another nurse check on the medications before I give them to the patient. And then probably have another nurse checking on the second nurse to make sure the second nurse did not make a mistake. And you will end up in a way that you have a system that is so complicated, and people who do not feel responsibility because it's always the system to blame. Now, I'm not saying that just culture is not good. It is very important to encourage people to admit to their mistakes and to have it fixed without punishing the people who come forward and say we did a mistake. But I'm just worried that this gets overblown to the extent that every mistake that is made is the system's mistake. And I'll give you now a few tips on the lighter side from my own experience in management and in leadership. One of the things that we need to get back into medicine is to respect our profession and respect our patient. A picture like this with a tiny baby that was just taken out through a cesarean section and played around like a toy is not something that should ever be seen in an operating room or anywhere else. A patient who just came out of recovery room and the physician who did the surgery takes a selfie with him with the victory sign, in my opinion, is a shame. it's nothing to be proud of. You have to respect patients. You have to respect the need that they need you. Yes, some people would come and say, well, he gave me the permission. Yes, he gave you the permission because you're the physician. He doesn't want to get you upset. He wants to make sure that you're happy. He wants to reward you for whatever service you did to him. Put yourself in his position. Would you like to see your picture everywhere and saying, here is blah, 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 whom I just did the following procedure on him? I don't think many of us would accept that. Attire and how you present yourself to people. We've seen lots of people in our region go to malls, supermarkets, restaurants wearing a lab coat or a surgical scrub suit. Surgical scrub suits and lab coats are for hospitals only. It's a hospital attire. It's nothing to show off in a restaurant. It's nothing to show off in a mall. And this is actually a study that was done in the US, who are usually very accepting in terms of attire and how people present themselves. In our culture, we are much more, we're not that liberal. We do criticize people and we expect people to dress up in a certain way. In the US, people are free to do whatever they want and wear whatever they want. And in spite of that, the study that was done in 2005 on 400 patients showed that 76% would respect the health professional if he wears a lab coat, and 10% only if he's wearing a surgical scrub suit. One of the major principles that led to the demise and the death of many very successful companies. Companies that reach the peak of their profession to the extent that the product is named after them. Xerox company, which was a photocopying, inventing the photocopying machine, the name Xerox became part of the vocabulary. Please Xerox this for me. Kodak, BlackBerry, Nokia, everyone knows these companies, and two of them are almost dead. They are being resurrected, and Nokia is also being resurrected recently, but not anything close to what it used to be, because at one stage they thought they are the best. And therefore, I don't have to improve, I don't have to change, because I know it all, I know everything. If you don't own it, this is a very important thing. When you get emotionally attached, and I did say in the beginning you need passion, which is true. But when you get too passionate and you feel that whatever you're doing is you or yours, then that's the end of you. Simply because for the first time, as a principle, you will not accept any criticism, because any criticism to whatever you're managing becomes criticism of you. Second, you won't let go. And then you will be insisting always that your ideas are the best and that you know better than anyone else. And the biggest problem is that when you are forced for whatever reason to leave that position, you will be totally demolished. Because it's like they pulled you out of your home and kicked you out. So yes, have passion, enjoy whatever you're doing, but always put in your mind you are a paid employee. You get paid for that job. At the end of the day, one day, I will get a letter, maybe if they're nice enough, a phone call to tell me, thank you very much, your services are no longer needed at Koc. And I have to be able to leave Koc with a big smile and saying, thank you very much, I've done my part. I hope I've done it right. I'll go and find somewhere else. And don't feel ever that this is mine and it was taken from me. Sometimes out of passion, and my colleagues at Koc know, when I talk, I say, I will not accept this. And then I correct myself. I said, I mean Koc. We will not accept this. Because sometimes you have to tone down your passion so it does not take over your commitment. Beware of the experts, and many of you would probably know what I mean, especially consulting companies that come and think that they know how to do things, and none of them have ever managed, probably even their household. And they come and give you advice on what to do and how to do it when they themselves never have done it. And they go only on data, principles, something they've read somewhere, something published. So yes, take their advice is good, but always depend on the experiences of you, your team, your colleagues, and beware of the culture difference. Especially in our region, when we have companies that come from outside our culture, and don't know how our culture works, and they give you advice on a certain level that really does not work in our culture. And therefore, you have to make sure that whatever advice they give you has to be adapted, to be adopted in our region. Don't neglect details, because if you do, you will always end up in trouble and making mistakes that were never expected. Now, I'm running out of time, so I'll go very quickly. I don't think I need to explain this. Keep always your dignity no matter what, and always do things the way you think they should be done. Social media for the young generation here can be your friend and can be your enemy. I've mentioned this a few weeks ago. Lots of our colleagues, young generation, have an impression that in order to be famous, you have to be known on social media. Well, let me tell you, this is wrong, especially in our region. Word of mouth in our region is the biggest advertisement that you can get, and the most important means of getting known among patients in your community. Social media is not to show off your work, is not to show off what surgery you have done. Social media is not for you to be a promoter of new drugs and new equipment for other companies. If you have not tried the drug, if you have not tried the equipment, do not mention it as if you are a salesperson and making a sales pitch. And pick your fights in your life. There are people that you can fight of and people that you can or you should not pick a fight with. And also be healthy. To be honest, this slide, I just forced it in to show off the picture I took and the slogan that I decided. And a final thing that we have always to remember when we criticize people, and this is for us senior or older generation, when we talk about the junior ones, we have to remember that they are the product of our society. And our society is changing, our principles are changing, our values are changing, and they're simply reflecting these changes in our values. But what we have to tell them is that they have to be better than the society that they grew up in. They have to show better values, and they have to promote better values through the work they've done. This is a video that I always show to all the newcomers to KKH on their first year, our first year residents. And I think it is a very good lesson to all of us physicians, senior and junior ones, on how we should treat patients, because patients will never forget how you made them feel. And we should always take patients' complaints seriously. If he comes to us and complaining, oh, I have redness and itchiness and I've been to 6 doctors, and you just have a quick look and you say, well, it's only dryness, and you know it's not dryness. And you just give him the drops to kick him out of the clinic. He went to 6 doctors. So whatever you think it's nonsense and a waste of your time, to him is very important, to the extent that he went to 6 doctors. So treat him with respect. Tell him what you think, and if you cannot find a reason why he's having his complaint, just tell him, I can't find a reason. Sometimes this is all he needs to hear. But do not push them away when they complain about something and you have no answer for it. Can you play the video, please?
Dr. Budd?
Yes.
You probably don't remember me, but you told me I wasn't sick. Do you remember? You told me I was just getting old.
I'm sorry, I really don't
remember. Maybe you're getting old. That's a little joke. Well, I tell you, Dr. Budd, I really am sick. I have chronic fatigue syndrome. That is a real illness. You can check with the Center for Disease Control.
Oh, well, I'm sorry about that.
Well, I'm glad. At least I know I have something.
I'm sure. Well, nice seeing you.
Not so fast. There are some things I have to say. There are a lot of things that I have to say. Words can't express what I have to say. What I went through, what you put me through. I can't do this in a restaurant.
Good.
But I will.
Louis, who is this person?
Look, miss.
Sit. I sat for you long enough. Dr. Budd, I came to you sick and scared, and you dismissed me. You didn't have the answer, and instead of saying, I'm sorry, I don't know what's wrong with you, you made me feel crazy, like I had made it all up. You dismissed me. You made me feel like a child, a fool, a neurotic who was wasting your precious time. Is that your caring profession? Is that healing? No one deserves that kind of treatment, Dr. Budd. No one. I suspect had I been a man, I might have been taken a little bit more seriously and not told to go to a hairdresser.
Look, I am not going to sit here anymore.
Shut up, Louis.
I don't know where you doctors lose your humanity, but you lose it. You know, if all of you at the beginning of your careers could get very sick and very scared for a while, you'd probably learn more from that than anything else. You'd better start listening to your patients. They need to be heard. They need caring. They need compassion. They need attending to. You know, someday, Dr. Budd, you're going to be on the other side of the table. And as angry as I am, and as angry as I always will be, I still wish you a better doctor than you were to me.
Thank you very much.